You are travelling through the desert, an endless sea of sand, when an encounter happens and you're attacked by a purple worm. Viewer Joshua Connor has asked an interesting question, and that is, what's the theory behind an outdoor encounter? How do we make it interesting and use the scenery? So I thought I'd do this episode set in the desert, where there's literally nothing. And let's make something. So as the purple worm comes up, it's made a huge crater. As the sand erupts from the ground and rock is displaced, our heroes make dex saving throws to avoid all the tumbling rocks. Even in a barren and featureless desert, there are things we can do with the terrain. Maybe instead of the crater erupted by a purple worm here, maybe it was a scarred landscape. Maybe there's outcroppings of grass because this is a savanna, and that allows us to have little bushes and some patches of long grass to hide behind. Or perhaps we're fighting in a desert mesa, and now there's all sorts of cover that we can take behind, and we can fight this creature in an outcropping with cover and lines of fire and so on. Or maybe we're having a battle around an oasis, and now you've got this big block of water in the middle of the map, and it's water our heroes need. Or perhaps we're up a mountain in the desert, this rocky outcropping. It's one of few in hundreds of miles, and it's the place our heroes need to get to achieve a vantage point, to find their way and get unlost on their trek across the desert. The point is, we can even use all of these things together. Such as in this case, where our heroes, startled by a purple worm, have dashed for cover, and now the fighter charges forward to try to lure the purple worm into an ambush that our heroes have set up. Whatever environment you're in, there are always things you can put into the scene to have an environmental impact on the fight. But it's not just the environment that can add to an outdoor fight. One of the biggest problems with any combat in an RPG is that quite often it's fatal, for the monsters at least, and your heroes always come through, and that's a bit dry and stale. There are ways to make an encounter more interesting by having an alternative victory condition. So let's go back to our purple worm fight here. Why is this purple worm fighting our heroes? Is it because the purple worm's hungry and just wants to eat? Perhaps the reason this gigantic purple worm has attacked our heroes isn't because our purple worm is hungry. Perhaps it's because it's mummy to Junior over here, and Junior has been startled by our heroes and is currently cowering in these rocks. Maybe at the start of the fight the heroes don't know this. Maybe this purple worm is far too powerful for our heroes, and it's okay to throw things that our heroes should run away from. The game here changes. It's not about killing the monster. In this case, our purple worm has an objective: protect Junior. It can burrow back under the sand and emerge out from the water. It can do all these fancy things, but the point is, it's doing them to protect its child. At the start of the fight, the heroes might not even be aware that they've stumbled across this little Junior purple worm. It's cowering behind some rocks, but as the fight moves and heroes bounce around the place, and as they come in and start engaging the purple worm, it dives back down, it emerges somewhere else, and as the heroes reposition, they discover Junior. And now we're in a situation where the fight is unfolding, and the players may just have realised why it's happening, why they're under attack from this fearsome creature. As our heroes traverse the desert, they begin to get desperate for a source of water. Spying a hill on the distance, they approach it, and as they get closer to the hill, they realise that on top of it is a large building, and that this is just the first building that would then lead on to reveal an entire orcish city. So now we have an alternative victory condition for our players. It's not about killing every orc. What they're after is some water. They might be able to negotiate it, or maybe they'll sneak in, but the point is there's an alternative victory condition for the players. Their goal is to get water. In their way are some hostile orcs. How they solve it is up to your group. The point being, a fight does not need to be about killing all of the monsters. Bridges are underused in the fantasy genre, so let's say you're taking a boat up a river. When you get to a bridge, can your boat go past the bridge? Is the bridge too low? So our heroes, having gone through the desert and taken a boat ride, trying to get back to civilization after their quest, have come across a bridge, and rather than transport the boat around the bridge, they've decided to get out and use the road. And it's as they're crossing the bridge that they're attacked by a sea creature on the bridge. Here's your opportunity to use altitude in the encounter. The tendrils of our sea serpent lashing against our heroes and trying to pull them over. As our remaining heroes on the bridge use strength tests to try and bring the hero back, and, well, you get the idea. Or perhaps it's tentacles from a much larger creature beneath, and we don't know what it is yet. But the sea serpent transpires just to be the end of one tentacle on a giant froggymoth. But in these depths, you notice there are other creatures too. We've got sharks. If we get pulled under, maybe we get stung by an electric eel. Our heroes follow the road until eventually they arrive at the town. And as they go through the town, it's full of wonderful and interesting places and sounds and scents and things to see and do. This time, as our heroes cross the bridge, they're not attacked from below, but from above. These brigands hiding up here on the balcony ambush them and start firing arrows down on their position. See, even in a town, you can use the vertical. We can have heroes running from rooftop to rooftop, chasing after enemies, chasing runaway wagons in the streets down below, or even just crazy things like this guy surprising them from a portaloo, and this guy's hiding up a tree with a bow, and at the base is a swordsman to make sure that the players cannot reach him. And as our heroes approach the wizard who's trying to summon demons and dragons to ravage death upon the land, we can use altitude again on our temple to rain death down from above on our heroes. Use the vertical in encounters to surprise your players and keep your encounters interesting. So whether it's using the vertical or having different kinds of terrain elements, always put things in the scene that the players can interact with. It doesn't matter if your heroes solve a particularly bad NPC that you've been building up for ages by misusing some terrain. That's what it's there for. It's more fun to solve problems without just grinding through hit points. So give your players the tools to do that by putting things in the scene that they can interact with. And don't be shy about surprising your players and attacking them the same way they would attack monsters. And don't forget, when you use combat in an RPG, it doesn't need to be about life and death. Sometimes ulterior motives can be the driver for the combat, and you can have players not even lose a single hit point but still feel that they lost because they failed to protect an NPC or they failed to accomplish their goals in a given encounter. Monsters and NPCs too can have their own motivations. The wizard could quite well die in this scene. She doesn't have many hit points, but will she complete casting her ritual before the players manage to stop her? Having a time constraint in a scene is a great way to build atmosphere and intensity. I'll quite often use a dice and count that dice down, and as it counts down, the players know when it gets to 0 and I pull the dice off the table, something happens. This kind of extra suspense, and albeit a meta mechanic of using a dice, but it builds tension in the game and helps to focus the players on their objective. It's perfectly okay for your heroes to fail their quest. The town is destroyed. Only now there's even more rubble for the bandits to hide in, and even more opportunities for the vertical. Haha! Let's see them escape this chapter. That's all for this week. I hope you've enjoyed this theoretical guide to outdoor combat. And if you enjoyed this, please consider backing us on Patreon. It helps make these videos possible. The link is below in the description. Thank you. Bye-bye.